And we are live. Guys, I'd like to welcome everybody to Let's Talk Fishing podcast. My name is James. I'm going to be your podcaster for this evening. Tonight, with a heavy heart, I have to announce the passing of a very good friend of mine, Matthew Roberts. Matthew Roberts was a Marine. He was a father. He was a husband. And he was a friend to us all. He was also one of the two founding members of Mission 6. Mission 6 took veterans like me fishing. In fact, when I found myself without a job in 2015, I reached out to Mission 6 and he drove through the night to pick me up, to take me 2 hours, feed me breakfast, take me fishing for redfish. Then he showed me how to catch redfish. And then he filleted all the redfish we caught and drove me home 2 hours, only to drive 2.5 hours back to Denham Springs, Louisiana. Godspeed, my friend. You will be missed. I'm going to his visitation tomorrow. And now I'm going to switch gears. Man, it is really an honor to have a true, and I use this word, master when it comes to smallmouth bass fishing. You guys who watched my show for a long time know that smallmouth bass are a special fish to me. I love smallmouth bass. I love smallmouth bass. I love smallmouth bass. And this man loves smallmouth bass as much, if not more than I do. He gets to fish for smallmouth bass. He's from one of my favorite places in the world. That's Wisconsin. Man, what a cool state. What a cool state. But anyways, without further ado, smallmouth bass master, Bill Schultz. How are you doing tonight, Bill?
I'm good, Jay. Thank you very much. And again, I'm very sorry to hear about your friend. That condolences to you and his family.
Thank you very much, Bill. So tell me, how many smallmouth bass have you caught now?
Well, I'll do this tongue in cheek only because, I say these numbers and people go, "You keep track of all those fish?" And
of course
I tell
you
them,
do.
well, here's the deal. When I got back into fishing in 1992, having spent 50 years with a very high-level racquetball career and having swum at the University of Wisconsin and having watched all the big weightlifters at the YMCA in Madison when I was growing up, keep track of their workouts. I kept my swimming on a 3x5 card in my wallet. I kept track of my racquetball matches. So obviously when I got back into fishing, I'm going to keep a log. And the nice thing is, it's kind of fun, especially now that these numbers are getting pretty big.
People make fun of you for keeping track of this?
No, I figured that people say this. They go, "Wow." Or they say, "I know I've caught more than he's caught. I just didn't keep track." So
because musky fishermen, it takes them 10 minutes to fill out their log after they catch one fish.
Well, my log is pretty simple. I did an article for Badger Sportsman on keeping a log. I mean, we got date, we got location. I know if I'm waiting. If I'm in a kayak, I note the kayak, and I know the locations in Sturgeon Bay where I do my lake fishing. And then I'll keep, just track of the number of smallmouth. If I catch the occasional other fish, and on the rivers, if it's 2 pounds or bigger, I note it. Up in Door County, Sturgeon Bay, if it's 4 pounds or bigger. So,
nice.
That's what I do. But, I like to joke that when I started doing this, I was much younger.
Yes.
So, now that I'm getting older, keeping track of the fish is really good for my mind.
Yes.
Maybe it'll ward off dementia.
Yes. It could. Something else I like about you is you believe there's beauty in simplicity, and so do I. You have 5 lures, and you know those lures backwards and forwards. Why don't you talk about that?
Well, I when I do my talks, I've done. I did 3 in early March at some big shows. And, I talk about, I use the KISS method, which is keep it simple, Schultz.
Yes.
And, the whole idea, I even try to think back, Jay, to, when I caught my first smallmouth bass in May of 94. And, over the next 4 or 5 years, getting more and more interested in smallmouth bass. And in the late 90s, that's pretty much all I fished for. What was I using? And to be honest with you, there's only a couple, 3 things that I used back then that I'm not using now, and they're actually similar to what I'm using now. So what I try to do, as we talked about earlier, is with all of you listening, we all know that lures many times catch more anglers than they do fish. And what I've tried to do, and this is really important to me, nothing that I'm talking about tonight is something that I didn't use and have great success with before I ever got involved with the companies.
Sure.
That goes to my credibility, and it's kind of fun to be able to say that because, I've got kind of a reputation having caught the number of smallmouth I have and the talks and the articles, some podcasts, but I want to make sure that if I tell you about something that it works for you, and if you have a problem with it, and to be honest with you, I've got 1,000 people on my smallmouth email group. If you want to be on my smallmouth email group and you are honest and say you're a catch and release smallie guy or girl, you can email me at smalliescentral@gmail.com. Also, I'm going to go fairly fast through a lot of this stuff. If you have questions, you're welcome to email me, and I'm pretty good at getting back. But I had one person in the last, I've been doing talks since 2001, who got back to me after I was talking about the Kalen's Lunker Grub, a very good smallmouth lure. And I don't probably use it as much, but it's still great, especially on rivers. But anyways, I got an email and he said, Bill, I tried that Lunker Grub, and he was very polite. I just didn't have much luck with it. So I emailed him back and I said, how were you fishing it? He goes, well, I was jigging it on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I go, no. I said, you swim it as slow and steady as you can. And that long, tall, wispy tail undulates unbelievable. It was designed to swim slow, steady. And he tried it and he got back to me and said, oh, it works great.
Oh,
yeah.
Hey, Bill, we have a comment here. The comment is from Jeff Quinn. He's from Michigan. He said, if you come and fish Lake St. Clair, you won't have enough paper to count all the smallmouth you catch.
I have one of the guys that's on my group that was at the Hara Fishing Club on March 7th, Clay Russell. And Clay's coming to my Smallie Night Out event on April 23rd. Clay is going to St. Clair before April 23rd and was checking with me on jig sizes for some of the things that I talked about. I would love to go to St. Clair. Though, along with the KISS method and keeping it simple, Schultz,
yes,
I'm also a little bit lazy.
Okay.
My nice Yarcraft boat with that nice Mercury engine is in my garage in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. And around southeast Wisconsin, you'll see me in my Frog Tog waders on the Milwaukee River or other rivers. I've got some in southwest Wisconsin. So I would love to go to St. Clair, but the problem is I'm lazy to drive that far.
Yes, you either have to go up and around or down and around.
Well, the nice thing, and you know that, Jay, having lived in Illinois, but it's interesting. Obviously, my wife and I for 10 years have got a home in Sturgeon Bay. And sadly, the year we bought it, March 31st of 2015, was the year that the numbers in Sturgeon Bay began going downhill.
Oh, no.
It was Bassmasters named Sturgeon Bay Door County number 1 in 2014, number 2 in 2015. Unlike St. Clair, unlike Mille Lacs in Minnesota, they took a little bit of a downturn. They are back. Sturgeon Bay, there's a reason why the DNR is working hard to make all of Door County 100% catch and release until July 1st. It's because the numbers are way down.
Okay.
Off the record, you'll hear this from everybody. The guides are great up there. They work their butts off, but they probably don't talk numbers as much as they used to. But anyways, thank you for that. I'd love to go to St. Clair. Do you have a boat? I'll just drive there and meet you.
That was Jeff Quinn.
Okay, Jeff.
Jeff, you'll see his, if you want to email him, it's smalliescentral@gmail.com. It's right underneath his picture.
Jay, do you want me to kind of touch base on some of those
absolutely
lures that I use?
Absolutely. Please do.
Okay. I would say if you go back and say, Bill, what lure have you used since you got back into fishing more than anything else? And I will tell you, this is a river lure.
Yes.
It's a shallow river lure. Jay has fished it a lot.
Yes.
And that's the Rebel teeny wee crawfish. The Rebel teeny wee crawfish is 1 1/4 inch, 1/10 ounce, comes with little bitty number 14s. And the key here is cut the back number 14 off and I use the VMC wide gap, extra strong, round, short treble. I'll put a number 10 on.
Okay.
It makes a big difference. It's still not a big treble. I don't fish anything else with trebles because I try to take care of the fish. But the teeny wee crawfish, it's a 2 to 3 foot diver. It swims nose down, so it bounces off of the rocks in the rivers. If you get a snag, typically if you just let up, it slowly floats to the top. This is a tremendous river lure that I began using in 1995. Used it a lot since. Probably in the last 3 or 4 years, I'm using it even more. When I'm wading a river, I always take 2 rods because you never know when you're going to stumble and break one or something's going to happen. You hate yourself if you walk a mile out over the cow paths to get to some spot on a little river in Southwest Wisconsin and you break your rod. Mm-hmm. So I always take 2, occasionally 3, tuck 1 or 2 in my wader belt. I always have the teeny wee crawfish on. And the other things, and again, I'm fishing 2 primary types of water. One being small rivers,
yes,
2, 3, 4 feet deep. The other being, since 1995, Sturgeon Bay and Door County. It's changed a lot. Still potential for big fish. It gets hammered with bed fishing. If anyone wants, I wrote a few years ago a 3,000 word article, Q&A with the world's leading authority on smallmouth bass research. And basically it can be narrowed down to one sentence: don't bed fish, it hurts the fishery, which to me is common sense. But when I'm fishing up in Sturgeon Bay, the big water, I have to tell you, there's a bait shop up there, well-known bait shop. And about 5 years ago, they said, Bill, you should use the Kitech USA Fat Swing Impact. I go, okay, great. So I bought some. They said you should get the 3.3 and the 3.8. Well, let me tell you that the 3.3 outfished the 3.8. And
really?
Yes. So being a person who believes that small catches everything and big doesn't, even though you get an argument there, I thought I better try the smallest version, which is the 2.8.
Wow.
And I will tell you, 5 years ago when I began using it, the 2.8 really, really outfishes the 3.3. And, here's, just to give you an idea, here's a package of the 3.3 and here's a package of the 2.8. One nice thing is that for the same price, you get 2 more of the 2.8. The Kitech is a phenomenal lure. It's phenomenal on the big water. It's phenomenal on rivers. The one negative, sorry to my friends at Kitech, but they are very fragile. So
okay, I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
They're very fragile. Sometimes catching 2 or 3 is it. Sometimes catching 1 or 2 is it. I will tell you that.
A comment here I'd like to tell you. Thumpum Soft Plastic says that the bass season doesn't open until June 11th, which is something you might like to hear in Michigan.
Where is that?
That's in Michigan.
Oh, that's great. I love that. In Wisconsin, it's year-round. It's catch and release until that first week, Saturday in May. I was going to say with the Kitech, to those of you that want to try it, first of all, if you email me, I don't want to make a mistake on the codes, but they retail for $6.49 for a package. If you use my last name and order from Kitech USA, 20% discount, which is pretty nice. But I have to tell you, I do enjoy jigs like the fish eyes here from Z-Man. I'm not a big fan of the wire keeper with the Kitech. It tends to tear them apart a little bit more. The jig that I have liked using with the Kitech is the Z-Man Nedlocks, which is not made in the United States. It's made in, the Scandinavia. It's got a little thicker hook, and it comes with a lead. Let me get this up here, a lead keeper that actually I think holds the Kitech and it doesn't tear it apart quite as much. But I will tell you that I love the Kitech. I don't do this as much up in Sturgeon Bay on the rivers because I'm catching a lot of little smallmouth. I'll bite the end off. I'll turn it around. I don't like to just hook it like a minnow onto the hook because there's a good chance it's going to come off altogether. And I don't like to leave lures in the water. Now let's go to the other extreme as far as the Kitech Fat Swing Impact is phenomenal. Now, about 3 years ago, I tried the Z-Man Slim Swims.
Slim Swims.
The Slim Swims. It comes in a 3-inch.
I like that.
And it comes in a 2.5-inch. And I will tell you, if I had my PowerPoint going, I'm not exaggerating. I have had several. These come maybe $5 or $6 for a package of 6 or 8. This is what the packages kind of look like from Z-Man. I have had several of these little guys. So how much are they a piece? Under $1? I've had several of these that have caught over 100 smallmouth. My best is 150 on one Slim Swims.
It must have been torn apart, huh?
Nope, they're
Really?
made out of their Elastec product.
Elastec, okay.
So it's super tough. It also and it doesn't make a lot of difference with the swim bait, but when we talk about the Ned rig, the TRD, they're buoyant, meaning it gives a little different look. So again, if you want to try something that works well, that you can spend pennies on, the Z-Man Slim Swims. And I will tell you, not going to rattle off all the colors right now, I tend to like darker on top, lighter on the bottom. And that's exactly what you see with this Fat Swing Impact. Darker on top, lighter on the bottom. They've got probably a dozen colors like that. Although, that being said, what colors work great on rivers? Okay, here's the Slim Swims in their blue glimmer color, which is an off-white with little specks. And what color for the Kalen's Lunker Grub work great on rivers? Blue, pearl, salt, and pepper. They're very similar. Why do they work so much? I have no idea. But those are some colors that really work. And again, I'm going to jump back. I don't have an agenda here. I'm going to jump back to the teeny wee crawfish, and I get asked, oh, what colors? You know what? I think this little lure is the intense wiggle.
Yeah.
Is what really attracts the fish. So the color to me is not as important. However, I tend to like the chartreuse and brown, the green with chartreuse, but you've got colors like stream craw, which is, just got the orange bottom.
Oh, that's what I used back in the 70s, right?
Yeah, and the ditch brown, which is similar, but brown on top. But I found that a lot of the colors work great with the teeny wee.
May I ask? I'd like to ask a question about that. So you're standing on the river, you're scanning it out, you find a little current seam you want to target, you cast a little bit upstream of that. One thing I saw when I'm pulling it in, and remember, I haven't done this in probably 25 years. How do you like to pull it in? Do you pull it directly perpendicular to the current? Do you get out in there and cast upstream, downstream?
Okay, I've done about 98% has been casting downstream and bringing it against the current. Okay. It adds even more to the wiggle.
Sure.
I will cast cross current. And by eventually it is kind of being brought against the current, but just not as such a tight angle. The one thing that with going to the number 10s, then this thing is very similar to when there's a number 14 on the back, but the number 10 adds a slight bit of weight that even slows that floating up more. It almost becomes a little bitty jerkbait. So unlike the other things I'm talking about, which are really hard to judge, bringing with the current, the teeny wee crawfish can work great bringing it with the current. Or I swim it pretty much slow and steady, counting on that tight wiggle. However, when you're bringing it with the current, or any time, but with the current in particular, jerk, pause, and let it be just a little floater diver that just sits there, like you do with a jerk bait. So, I suggest just people experiment.
Okay.
Now we're going to go just to two more things. And one being the Ned rig. Most of you have heard about the Ned rig.
Yes.
Probably Z-Man is the company that really got the Ned rig popular. And the neat thing about the Ned rig here is a finesse TRD in their very best color. It's the one that they sell the most of. It's what I've caught 90%, maybe more, maybe like 95 or 98% of the probably 5,000 or 6,000 smallmouth I've caught on this lure alone. And the neat thing about it is it's certainly easy to rig. I usually am fishing it on a 1/15 or a 1/10 ounce jig. And here I'm loading it up on one of the Ned locks. And there it is. And what's cool about it is, and I have a picture I use in my presentations of one of these and their little tube Z, which is a 2 3/4 inch little tube. They both are buoyant. So if you're in a river, you're in a lake that's got some current or wind, they stick up off the bottom and the current moves them. I think that's one of the bonuses to the Elastec and that buoyancy. It gives a different look. If this was another type of a soft plastic and it's laying on the bottom like a tube, well, where I fish in Sturgeon Bay, now there's scum, about an inch of scum on every rock in Green Bay or Lake Michigan, especially Green Bay. So when you got one of these little guys sticking up buoyant off the bottom, I get very little crap on it when I bring it in. If this was laying down, or you can't, it would be really tough to use. I have found, as nice as the Tube Z is, as nice as their tickler is, as nice as their craw is, and all of that, I still by far do my best on the TRD. And, pretty much as I was telling Jay earlier, I've got a diagram that they did. Shows 4 ways to use it. And I, like most, it's make a long cast, let it sink, twitch, and let it sit. You're going to get most of your bites when it's sitting. And the other thing is that twitch with that rod, you might think you're only twitching it a little bit. You'd be amazed. That little twitch might move this a foot. That's how I fish it. I will tell you, having had an expensive St. Croix rod with an expensive reel being dragged out of the back of my boat a few years ago in Sturgeon Bay,
Oops.
I literally, if I have to make a call or whatever, I watch the rod. If it's laying there, I always pick up that rod thinking I might have a fish.
Yep.
And many times I do. The one thing on my diagram, this is always a fun story to tell. There's one where it just shows swimming this baby just like that. I mean, no tail, no nothing, just swimming it. And I like to, before I retired for 2 decades, I ran the Alumni Association at the Medical College of Wisconsin, which used to be Marquette University Medical School. And one of my guys on my email group, kayaker, has a house up in Door County. And, you hear, well, you don't have to be a brain surgeon or a rocket scientist. Well, this guy is a retired brain surgeon. And he said, Bill, when I'm pedaling my kayak from spot to spot and I'm using the Ned rig with the TRD, I just hold it out and swim it along and I catch fish. So I figured a brain surgeon told me that, so I better believe him. So that I've showed you the swim baits I use. I've showed you the literally the couple of products from Z-Man that I use, the TRD and the Tube Z. The other thing that for years in my talks, I'd say, I know that tubes really work well, but I just don't fish them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that kind of ended in early November of 2020. I'll tell you one thing I hate, and I bet you all of you hate. Don't you hate it when you're in your boat, your kayak, or whatever, or on shore, or waiting, and somebody's near you and they're catching fish and you're not?
Yes, I hate that.
I hate that. So I'm up and I can tell you the dates. It was the day before the 2020 national election. So I was there Monday, and I've only got skunked up there like 3 times. And this Monday, November 1st or whatever it was, I could tell it was not going to be a good day with what I was using. And that happens. So I'm out the next day, deeper water. I'm not a big deep water guy. And there's a guy in front of me in a bass boat catching, and no one else is out there. I putted up with the trolling motor behind him, and I introduced myself. We talked, and I'm using a tube, a 2.5-inch tube. And I had some, so I tried. I did better. And I did on the Wednesday and the Thursday, I did better. Not phenomenal, but better. But I got on Thursday, I ran into him at the launch. He mentioned he had changed his favorite color. And what I'm holding here is amber with purple fleck.
Wow.
Well, let me tell you that on Saturday, the 7th of November, the 8th of November, and Monday, the 9th, I caught 50 smallmouth in 15 and a half hours of fishing with 30 fish between 4 and 7.25 pounds. I did on Saturday, the 7th, my personal best at 7.25. The next morning with the same tube, same rod, 612, an inch shorter, so 20 and a half inches long. I was in, 20, 25 feet of water. I don't like to fish any deeper than that. So what I've come to like is earlier in the year, later in the year, in deeper water, I've had good luck with the tubes. The negative, I'd use them more often, but as I mentioned, up there where I fish, there's scum on the rocks all the time. And you would hate yourself to try to fish a tube on the rivers I fish. I've walked hundreds and hundreds of hours in these small rivers.
Yes.
And I'm lucky that I've only taken a few headers because there are boulders, there are little rocks, there are bowling ball sized rocks. It's terrible. And even though the Ned rig with the TRD it's buoyant, and with the light jig, it's better, you're still going to lose a lot of jigs simply because it's just tough. When you're waiting, it's a little easier because you can walk to where it is. It might only be up to your thighs.
Yeah.
Get it out. But, and in the same with the kayak, which I use the kayak on the river I fish in the fall quite a bit. You can usually get to the place and not lose as many. But when you're shore fishing or something like that on a river, you're going to lose a lot of jigs. I was just going to show you. This is like the package for the Ned locks. The other one that I said I like are the fish eyes, and that's the package for the fish eyes. The one thing I wanted to mention, and for all of you out there, again, I'm trying to show you a few number of lures that work really, really well, but I also, want to save you some money. The other jigs that I use a lot are, and years ago, and if you read Matt Straw in Fisherman for years.
Oh yeah, he's my favorite writer.
Matt would talk about the gopher jigs. They were in the Brainerd, Minnesota area. Sadly, they went out of business, but and I was involved with them for a long time. They used to provide me samples. I'd give them away at my talks. Thankfully, a couple from Northwest Iowa, Ron and Stacy, bought the company, Gopher Tackle online, and they continue to make the wonderful mushroom head jigs They
That
have
has a little bigger hook too, doesn't it?
what?
That has a little bigger hook too, doesn't it?
Well, this is the Big Johns, and the Big Johns has a 2-aught. It is a great jig for a little bit larger swim baits than what I was telling you about. It's a phenomenal jig for the Kalen's Lunker grub. Absolutely phenomenal. And I discovered it for the Kalen's in 2008. And what I just pulled out was, one of the sample packs. I use for the Ned rig, and it works great. I use
What color of jig do you prefer?
it's as easy. Since 2017, I use one color and one color only, chartreuse.
Okay.
My feeling is, compared to black or dark green or just a lead head color, it gives a little extra pop. And it's interesting that it's funny that day that I caught that 7 1/4.
Jeez.
Near me was Freshwater Hall of Fame fisherman guide Dale Stroshine.
Okay. Yeah.
Dale's a good guy. He's a great guide. He's a great fisherman. And it was funny because I knew Dale had taken him 27 years, I guess, to catch his first 7+. This was the last weekend of my 26th year. I held it up and, hey, Dale, my first 7+. And the water temp was 46. I hurried and that's a terrible picture I have of me, especially. I waited quickly with the Boga grip. I only use the Boga grip because 3,500 world records, no BS when I'm telling weights. I'm really anal about being accurate, as you would guess with me keeping my log.
Yes.
But anyways, Dale's right there at the front of my boat as I'm letting this big guy go over. And his words were, and we've joked about this. We actually handed off doing talks one time telling this story, but he goes, Bill, I knew what he was going to say. He was going to say, Bill, not all scales are calibrated accurately.
Oh,
and I
good.
said, Dale, 7 1/4 on the Boga grip. He goes, great fish. So we had some fun with that, but I use the Boga grip. I mean, granted, they're expensive at $149, but they last when I'm in my kayak, they're tied with a rope to my seat. Yes. Or you should put a little float thing on them, because there's a lake west of here in the Milwaukee area that has, it was an expensive day for me. It's got a $70 Gerber tool, and it's got at that time, $119 Boga grip on the bottom. So I'm very careful with them.
And those St. Croix rods?
I don't drop any. I take that back. I've fallen out of my kayak one time, and that's because I had a rod that got stuck in a bush, and it was windy as heck. And I went by the bush, and I'm sideways in my kayak. I'm thinking it's going to take more to pull it out. I give a yank. I go over, and I wear frog tog waders when I'm wading.
Yes.
That's my cold weather in my kayak. I cinch them up really tight. I wear the waist high ones. So I'm in the water up to my waist. Not much water is getting down. And what was embarrassing was another guy in a kayak going, hey, do you need some help? And I go, no, the water is ultra clear. The 2 rods that fell out, I picked them up really easily. So,
good.
So I'm not losing St. Croix rods out of the kayak or the boat. But I wanted to say, I'm trying to save money. I wanted to talk about the gopher jigs, which are phenomenal. We have, and I get these codes mixed up a little bit, but we have a code with gopher, which I think is Schultz in capital letters, 40% off. I will tell you that 40% off with the jig prices the way they are, that's pro staff pricing. That's phenomenal. The other great deal that I'm going to tell you about goes back to the tube. And I ran one of my guide friends from the Green Bay area, guy who actually, my very first time ever fishing in Door County, May of 95, my brother-in-law and I hired Doug Schreiber. And Doug, I've gotten to know Doug well. He doesn't guide anymore, but he recommended a company out of Batesville, Arkansas, Right Bite Baits. And I will tell you that the Right Bite tubes online right now, a 10-pack is $309. And a 10-pack of their insert jigs is $299. And I promised them I would not mention any bait shop names, but I know of one well-known bait shop that buys them by the 1,000, repackages them with their name on them, and they become $599. So Right Bite Baits, no discount, just a great price. I'm just trying to what I try to do, and that's why when I do my talks, I'm probably the only person I've seen that gives out his email address, smalliescentral@gmail.com, to let people email me for a PDF of my talk. And quite honestly, if anyone emails me, happy to send you my Ned rig and other top lure talks, which is kind of what we're doing here. The extra bonus is that I realized when I started doing that 10 or 12 years ago, I got a lot of compliments. You know, I got one last year at the Wisconsin Fishing Expo. Best talk I have ever heard, any species, any show. That made me feel good, but I get a lot of great comments like that when I do my talks because they're packed with information. The other thing I want to, again, I don't have the picture, but I have a picture of me from August of 1994. That's that first year I caught smallies. I'm on the Wisconsin River wearing a pair of shorts, wearing a short sleeve t-shirt, a baseball cap, and polarized sunglasses. Now, if you look at how I dress, you would say this guy's a dermatologist's dream. And I do, having, run the Alumni Association with 18,000 doctors, I know a lot of dermatologists, and some have borrowed pictures of me. But now when I'm on the water, whether I'm in a kayak, I'm wading, or I'm in my boat, I'm wearing a buff, a hat, sunscreen on my face. I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt like I'm wearing now, and Columbia pants that are SPF. The other thing that I want to tell you about that I documented, I've started wearing them in 2012. So I can tell you that my last 20,000 smallmouth, I've been wearing the Glacier Outdoors Glacier Glove. These are great. One time in all those years, all those hundreds of days, I'd forgot my Glacier gloves. I felt so naked. And when you think about it, when you're wherever you live, wherever you're fishing, you're grabbing the spinning rod, the reel and rod, and the back of your whatever hand you grab it with is getting hammered. And ideally, you're catching and releasing smallmouth, so you're getting your other hand wet. And we've all had way the heck too much sun. The neat thing about, and they come in, their colors are phenomenal now. These are just some of the colors. I wear them all the time, even hiking sometimes. And the neat thing for you kayakers, they've got the synthetic leather on the palms. They're great for holding your paddle. And the neat thing is they're not that expensive anyways, $26.99. And I think the code is capital letter BILLS bills 50% off. And if you buy $50 worth, you get free shipping. I can, if you get the PDF or you email me, I can get you all the codes. But that to me is important. The sun protection. I'm not here. Here's the deal. As I say in my talks, I'm not out to get a suntan. I'm not out to drive my boat. I'm not out to paddle my kayak and then I'll go, well, that's kind of fun sometimes. No, I'm out to catch and release smallmouth bass. I can usually tell within a few hours how it's going to go. And I'm not out. The scenery in Sturgeon Bay and Door County is unbelievable. The bluffs and the trees and everything else, both Green Bay and Lake Michigan. The rivers, I love it. The egrets, the blue herons, the geese, the eagles. I love it. But I'm not out to get a suntan. I'm out to catch and release smallmouth bass. So I do a really good job of covering up. So we're doing pretty well. I've rattled through everything. I look forward to hearing from some of you. I did want to mention the Kalins and the blue pearl salt and pepper, which is and I
Sure.
will tell you,
Pepper, love that color.
well, it comes in a 3, a 4, and a 5-inch. Years ago, the guy that owned the famous bait shop up there and also was a top guide, and I, on a rainy day, argued which size is bigger, the 4-inch or the 5-inch. He swore by the 5, I swore by the 4. And the difference from the 4 to the 3, you still have that long tail on the 4, shorter body, and the color. In 2014, before I was fishing up there year round, I only fished up there in May and June. And I can tell you that in May of 2014, I caught 714 smallmouth. I was averaging 46 smallmouth every 8 hours on the water, all conditions. The smoked salt and pepper, every single one of those 714 smallmouth came on. So I like the 4s better than the 5s, and these are my 2 favorite colors. And just because Jay didn't mention it, and you guys who are listening can make fun of me, I'm sitting. I started this year, and I've caught 13 smallmouth this year, short fishing. So I'm up to 33,372 caught and released since that first in May of '94, and actually, all but about 600 have come since like 1998, 1999, and the last 4 years, just literally using what I showed you, I'm over 9,600 just in the last 4 years. I got lucky with. I started really paying attention when I hit the water up in Sturgeon Bay looking for number 20,000. And number 19, I went up needing 2. I left the Milwaukee River on a really good day because I wanted to be up there with a chance of a bigger fish, not a 9-inch river fish. So I got the blue, smoked salt and pepper on. Number 19,999 was 2 pounds. Number 20,000 was 4.5.
Wow.
So I did the same thing just literally 2.5 years ago at 25,000. I went to Door County needing 2 fish. Yeah, fishing was so slow. Again, 24,999 was 2 pounds. And the friend that was with me wanted to be with me to take pictures. I had to drop him off. And 25,000 was 4.5.
Wow.
I did the same thing a year and a half ago. She hit, going for 30. I hit the water needing 7. I left the water on a slow day needing 1. So I'm out at one of the islands in Green Bay, and I go right to where I'm thinking this is my only shot at. And the fish was just a hair under 4 pounds. So I've been lucky. I can tell you that 31,000 was 4 plus, 32,000 and 33,000 were not that big, but they were nice. So any of them are nice. I shouldn't even say that they're not nice. You get a 12 or 13 incher in current, and you'll have a blast. You know that, Jay, because you fished those rivers in northern Illinois. So, anyways,
northern Michigan,
6:45. I've covered what I wanted to cover with all the things I brought up to my home office. Do you have any questions or?
Would you like to do any shout outs?
Well, I've kind of and I have virtually nothing that I use, whether it's, I shouldn't say that. My Yarcraft, I did not try a Yarcraft before the Yarcraft, but the same people that I dealt with on Crestliner had Yarcraft, and I heard so many wonderful things. But, Yarcraft boats, that's my boat.
Sure.
If any of you guys are in engines, I will tell you that I have a 200 Pro XS. It's a V8. It's unbelievable. I've now had 2 of them, and on my Yarcraft before that, and Crestliner, I had the 4-cylinder Mercury turbo, and this V8 is unbelievable. The companies that I talked about, I don't, I buy stuff, discount. Some of the stuff I certainly get, but these are the products that I use. I use them all before I ever got involved.
Sure.
I do kayak fishing, and I've been involved with Jackson Kayak for a long time. I'm keeping it simple in my kayak. I've got a pedal Coosa FD for up in Sturgeon Bay. They've got all the bugs worked out. It's a great kayak. On the river, I use one of the paddle kayaks. For any of you people that are kayak anglers, take this advice and write it down. Buy the most expensive, lightest paddle you can afford. You will never regret it. They last forever. And me using a 27-ounce paddle compared to your 40-ouncer, it's like you paddling an extra 100 pounds around every hour. So, no, those are my kayak, things. And I wade. I wear my Frog Tog waders and wading boots are high quality, and they aren't as expensive as some of the others. And you heard me talk about the Rebel Teeny Wee Crawfish, the Z-Man products, the Kitech products, and the Kalen's products, and the Right Bite products. That's it. The nice thing is I remember when I turned in my 2017 Crestliner. I kept it only a year. I thought life is short. I wanted to get the Yarcraft. And when you're on the big water like I am a lot, truly that 18.5-foot Yarcraft does ride like a 20-footer. But anyways, under the front console, I always in that also always a windshield when you're up in the big water.
Mm-hmm.
I had a place to put like 6 or 7 Plano boxes. And I remember I put them in my boat. When I got it, I did not touch one of those lures until I took the boxes out to turn the boat back in, because I was taking my little duffel bag, or I had the soft plastics that I'm talking about. And in the kayak, it's great because in my paddle kayaks, there's a compartment in front of me that the top comes up. It's about 10 inches wide by about 30 inches. I can fit everything and more in there. And when I'm in my kayak up on the big water, I don't have to take a lot of stuff. I did want to mention, Jay, and all of you who are wondering, when I'm on the river and I'm using the Teeny Wee Crawfish, I'm using the Kalen's, I'm using the Kitech and the Z-Man products. I've been involved with St. Croix rods since 1998. I use in all of their series the 6'10" medium light extra fast. It's got enough backbone for bigger fish. It throws all these light lures phenomenal. That's what I use on rivers. If you would have asked me up until the middle of 2018, what is the best Ned rig rod? I would have said, hey, 6'10" medium light extra fast in all the series. They make it in all the series. That was until in the middle of August of that year. I don't lose fish because I'm only using one hook.
Mm-hmm.
I lost 4 or 5, 4.5 to 5.5 pound fish. They jumped, they spit the hook. The other little jig that Z-Man makes, which is nice, is their shrooms, but it's got a real light wire hook. I was using that rod. It just didn't have quite enough backbone for the really big fish. So that's when I started on the big water. You'll see me using medium extra fast or medium fast. It makes no difference on how I can cast things, but a little extra backbone to set the hook. And I also use for throwing the swim baits now. I've jumped up to using 7'3" medium extra fast because they're great. A little more distance. And I'm using them in all the series. I mean, I've got a picture of me on a river waiting with $125 6'10" medium light extra fast Bass X and a $675 Legend Extreme. And with the way I use things, I don't notice a ton of difference. So, all these series have all, the rod actions and lengths that I use. and some great ones in those great rods, but less expensive. The Bass X, their new black bass, and the Mojo and the Victory. They're all 200, 225 down to 125. So I just, and from a reel standpoint, real quick, because I fish a lot in really clear water, you get 2/3 of the way back after a cast. I want to get that lure back in and make the cast. So I'm using reels that are 6.2 to 1 for a faster retrieve ratio. And I really like that 2500 size. I'm using Daiwa, the new Exceller and Fuego, and then for $69, unbelievable, the new Regal. And I also use the St. Croix, their 7 reels. I like, St. Croix with the 7 reels have a 2000 and a 2500. They're both the same body, but what's neat with the 2000, I don't have to put any backing on. It takes just the amount of braid that I normally put on. And speaking of braid, for about 4 years now, 5 years, Daiwa J braid in chartreuse. It is, you got to be able to see your line. So I'd recommend white or chartreuse. As we get older, the dark greens, you aren't going to see them. And every presentation I use, I'm using, longer than I used to say, a 3 to 4.5 foot fluorocarbon leader, and I use 10-pound fluoro, everything, because I had lost some big fish getting lazy and lifting them with the fluoro. And I'm using the J braid. I use 10-pound. I'd say 10 or 8. So there you go, Jay. I've done my best to get through everything, and you
got through everything.
Yep.
You got through everything. Thank you very much, Bill. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Well, I enjoy it, Jay, and we'll talk some more.
Okay. Well, hey, man, guys, it is Wednesday. This is going to be one of the last weekends where it's not going to be 110 degrees down here. I'm getting out, going down to the coast, going to fish for some specks, which are, man, I love speckled trout. I love speckled trout. You know, I can catch speckled trout on every lure that Bill talked about, except for that teeny crawl, because you just need a bigger hook. You just need a bigger hook. And just like Bill, I do not like treble hooks. I don't like treble hooks. Lose too many fish. But anyways, guys, get out this weekend. Go fishing. Just like I told you, my friend Matt, I bet you he wishes he would have gone fishing the weekend before.
Yes.
You know, you're not going to be here forever. And in the last days, and you're talking to your wife, you're not going to remember all the great times you had watching television.
That's true.
Go out, make memories, take your kids fishing, take your wife fishing, take your buddies fishing, because there's more to fishing than just fishing. There really is. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the Let's Talk Fishing podcast. Thank you, Bill. I love to have you on, man.
Thank you. We'll get on. We'll get on after I'm hoping to be at 35,000 by late summer or early fall.
I'm sure you will make it, man. Bill, stick around for 1 minute after the show. I'd like to talk to you. Sure. But other than that, guys, man, thank you so much, because, you know, I can't do this show without my guests like Bill. And also I certainly can't do this show without people to tune in.